The Many Things Podcast.
All right, mate.
Hello.
All right, I wanted to start today with my favorite news story this week. I found it on Vice World News. Buddhist temple left without monks after they all tested positive for meth. So there was some monks in this temple in Thailand, and the police pulled them over there in a car, tested them, and they all tested positive for methamphetamine. Now, just a disclaimer, I've never tried methamphetamine, but I have tried meditation, and I don't think you can meditate when you're on meth. I could be wrong. I don't think that's very easy to do.
No, I doubt it is. Is there a reason why they took this? Or did they say there was a reason?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, I guess they're just have a meth addiction issues. But basically, the whole region, there's the Golden Triangle, which is where Bermuda is, and that region in East Asia, and it's always been famous for heroin production. But they said recently, because there was in Myanmar or Burma, however you want to say it, it's the same place. They had this military coup, and so the military have taken over the country. And they said since then, the levels of methamphetamine getting produced there and spreading into local countries such as Thailand has just skyrocketed. So yeah, I mean, through the chaos of changing power, I guess that's what happened. Some monks got hooked on meth. Imagine that, just sat in a temple. Stuff off your face on Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if any of the monks, and I'm not accusing them of this, but if they were involved in trafficking, not these monks specifically, but if any.
I mean, maybe, and you got to think, if you were to traffic drugs, being dressed up as a monk, that's a pretty good disguise. Like, the police aren't just going to want to randomly pull over monks. Like, surely that's a good disguise if you were to traffic.
Look, here it says, this is not an isolated case of Thai monks behaving badly either. In recent years, the sacred institution of Thai Buddhism has been tarnished by a series of high-profile arrests and scandals relating to corruption, murder, and trafficking and drug trafficking among its clergy. So they've obviously used the Buddhism as like a front for drug trafficking.
Right. Yeah. So there is a thing going on,
And they probably got a percentage of it. It's probably not them like running the whole thing, but they get a percentage of the profit. And then that's probably how they got into it.
Maybe take a cut. I mean, they could still be dedicated Buddhas. I mean, they could still be dedicated to their religion and be very good practicing monks, but just like a little bit of meth on the side, It's weird how they want to traffic drugs though, because I thought if you're a monk, you don't have any cost of living. You live in the temple for free. And
yeah, that's what I thought. Maybe they're just money corrupts people easily, so maybe they didn't really want to be monks anymore, and they just didn't think they'd get caught, so they got involved with this. But
they're
I'm
bad.
Not sure.
Yeah, they're bad monks because they're people, I guess, and there's always going to be a certain percentage of the population that are going to want to do crime and things. So whether you're a Buddha or a Christian or whatever, that could still happen. So yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? But I wanted to talk a little bit about drugs actually, and illicit drugs in the United Kingdom, etc. Because I'm sure you've seen before how, like, I think London and Bristol, they have some of the highest cocaine usages like on the planet in terms of population in cities and stuff, right?
Yeah, they do.
It's this weird thing. I was watching this documentary the other day on it, and it was in like Latin American countries, and it was in Colombia, and obviously it was famous in like the Escobar era, but the country now still has serious problems because of the billions they make selling cocaine is used to fuel these paramilitary militias to fight against the government and stuff. But really, it's the Western people's love of cocaine which is causing all this chaos.
Yeah, it wouldn't, yeah, it's because there's a marketplace, because there's a marketplace for it, because in Colombia they take it, but it's obviously not going to be like the amount of people that take it there is going to be a lot less than here in the rest of America. So I think until like there stops being such a large market for it, yeah, until the demand goes away, like there's going to be such a massive supply.
Right. Well, that's the weird thing. Like in the news, if you see an overdose, three people have died from overdosing on some illicit drug, a rave or a club or something, that's going to make headlines everywhere. Yet the reality is that the actual deaths caused by these drugs is in like the tens of thousands, but it's just happening on the other side of the world in these like conflicts, these drug conflicts, and these militias combating their governments and stuff. But it's still the same product, and it's just happening in this other country. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the people that farm it and are like involved with the gangs are the ones like where most of the deaths or a lot of the deaths can be found. But a lot of people that farm this haven't got like any other income, or it's like one of the main ways they can get income. So they're obviously going to keep farming it.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of the farmers, they're not rich people. They're just very poor working class working farmers. But it's the cartels that are taking in all the profit. But they have like government schemes. Like in Colombia, they had a change of power. There's a new leader, but the previous leader was trying to implement all these schemes to give them subsidies. Look, produce cocoa leaves, produce like chocolate and stuff like this instead, and then come off producing the cocaine. But these schemes, whether it's through corruption or whatever, they just never meet the people. So guess what? They just go back to producing the cocaine. And if it's a case like between your family, like, because there's no economy, it's all these rural people living out in near the jungles and stuff. If it's a case between your family starving to death and there's no other business, or you're going to make these coca, or you're going to grow coca leaves, like, I don't know, it's difficult. It's easy for us to take the moral high ground from where we are in the UK looking across at them, but these people are in difficult situations, I think.
Yeah, it's not, they have less options. They have less employment options. So until there's the government actually have.
It was about, the drugs and the deal that's happening, how all the people are dying in South America because of the conflict that's created by the West demand for cocaine and all other substances. Andrew Bartha, how do we fix this problem? They've had a drastic reshuffle of government, and the way they've selected our new prime minister is just to pick a random person. You've been picked. What are you doing about the drug issue?
Well, you have to. The supply isn't. I don't think the supply will ever go. Well, okay, maybe not ever, but the supply isn't going to go soon. So they have to focus on the demand. The demand isn't going to go soon. So they have to focus on the supply side and help rather than saying to these farmers, oh, if, you're breaking the law by farming this, we're going to put you in prison or whatever. They should incentivize them to at least make some sort, give them some form of employment that will actually be more attractive, because no one actually wants to farm. Well, okay, some people probably do, but the amount of people that farm cocaine, like, I bet only a very small percentage actually want that as their job. If you actually gave them something that was more attractive, they would go there, but
Yeah,
there isn't. And the drug cartels have too much power. That's the other thing. So they might blackmail them if they try to leave, or it's a very complex issue. I think on the demand side, I mean, you can, I don't know, how can you, thing is, if people want to take cocaine, they will find it, like in the UK or whatever. So it's very difficult, but banning things doesn't usually work. You have to like focus on harm reduction or disincentivize people.
yeah. I mean, I was reading here the global cocaine market's $88 billion. This is back in 2008. So it's going to be it's way over $100 billion now. So that's such a lucrative business for all these cartels. And I think if you think of the war on drugs, back to the Nixon era in, when was it, like the 70s or the 80s, when he declared the war on drugs, like 50 years later, I mean, they definitely ain't winning. So it's whether you can stem this demand,
Yeah, he was in the 70s. And the problem was that they were allocating money, like in the Nixon era, to the war on drugs, and they set like minimum prison sentences for various drug offenses, but there was a big gap between the minimum sentence for crack and of powder cocaine.
Yeah, it was crazy, wasn't it? It was far for the crack cocaine.
It says the possession, like in Britannica, this is where I'm getting it from. It says a possession of 5 grams of crack led to an automatic 5-year sentence, while it took the possession of 500 grams of powder cocaine to trigger that sentence.
Really?
And it also said that 80% of crack users were African American, which meant that these like possession rules of the amount you had to possess to be put in prison disproportionately affected that community, which is why it got labeled. This is why the war on drugs was labeled as a racist institution.
But that's the thing.
I think it's kind of similar with marijuana as well today.
For anyone,
but there's still a crack epidemic in America.
Yeah, or like for anyone that doesn't know, the only difference between crack cocaine and normal cocaine is it's mixed with something. It gets cut so it can be smoked, whereas normal cocaine can't really be smoked. But it's basically exactly the same thing. And the fact that you need to be holding 100 times more of it to get the same criminal conviction if you're dealing pure cocaine. But yeah, that's why the argument came about, that it was just a race war as much as a drug law war. It was just a way to discriminate against minorities, because for whatever reason, in all of these black neighborhoods, they predominantly sold and consumed crack cocaine instead of regular cocaine. But yeah, it's really crazy. I think in Barack Obama changed the legislation, but it's still not even. So the having crack is still a harsher punishment than having the normal cocaine, for sure. But yeah, it's crazy really how this war on drugs, like the demand is just still so strong. So to say the war on drugs is winning, I just don't think you can say that the war on drugs is winning or it's been successful, the amount of money they spent on it. I mean, who it's been successful for, you could argue it's been successful for the legal industry, the prison industry, for like private prison companies, more so in the US. I'm not really sure about the situation in the UK, because I remember when I was doing my undergrad in criminology, I was trying to write an essay and I don't know, I just got confused. I was just started reading loads of random stuff about the prison system in America. And they have contracts with the private prisons with the government that the government guarantees them has to be, whether it's 70 or 80% filled capacity for these prisons.
And I think you get money for each prisoner,
which is crazy. And
so,
like a lot of non-violent drug possession offenses, a lot of people are in prison because of that, which I think is wrong. So, well, what do you think about legalization as a solution?
Well, I mean, it means that you don't end up with like mass incarceration, which is what happens with if everything is illegal. But I think it can be part of a solution, because one of the problems with making stuff illegal is you just make a market for it, an illegal market for it, so these people will just find it, like with criminals, or they'll just be able to get the drugs from criminals. Whereas if you legalize it, and if you have like dispensaries like they do in some places in America, at least you have some regulation with the product.
Yeah,
but I don't know if it's the only solution, but the thing is, there will always the demand will always be there.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it could be part of the solution. And the other benefit of the legalization would be the regulation. Now, when I'm trying to argue this with people, is I always say the example of alcohol. If you're drinking an alcohol that has 100% purity, chances are that probably going to kill you because it's such a strong substance. Yet if you got given a bottle of alcohol and you had no idea what the strength would be, because it comes from the black market or whatever, it's a very dangerous substance there. But now it's legal. It has all sorts of regulations and checks it has to go through. So on the bottle it gives you a little percentage concentration. It's safe to drink. So if these substances, they'd be purer, and there's less chance of people overdosing and stuff. Like about like the fentanyl, for example, when they mix a lot of cocaine and other drugs, they mix with fentanyl. Certain whether it's the Chinese or the South Americans do, the cartels do, because a tiny amount of fentanyl is incredibly addictive, which is why they do it. But a tiny bit more and then it just kills you. So it stops stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Lib Dems wanted to legalize marijuana in like
wasn't that
2010 or 20 in one of their manifestos. Like,
I think it was Nick Clegg, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was hit during his premiership. It wasn't like now, although they might still want to. But yeah, I think it could become legal one day here, but there's such a resistance to it here.
Well, here's the thing. I think when you have to view the legality of these illicit substances, people, obviously because we're living in this time frame, but people are very short-sighted and time frame constrained, because only 150 years ago, all of these substances were legal. Like, did you hear about the opium wars with China?
Yeah.
Right.
And also, I think dentists used to use cocaine to numb people.
Yeah.
So it was these things have applications. A lot of them were invented by like scientists or doctors.
We pause this.
Obviously, they got into the hands of like the public.
Can we pause it a sec? Okay, so basically with the opium wars between 1839 and 1842, the British forced a war in China because we were doing a different trade with China, but China banned the sale of opium, and we were producing opium, which is heroin, in India, and we wanted to smuggle it in and push it through the ports in China and sell it to the Chinese population. It was the British versus the Chinese Qing dynasty, their ruling power at the time. But essentially, we kept asking them, and they said no. So we went to war against China in their own country. We were warring in their ports and stuff, and the British beat them, and this led to the treaty called the Treaty of Nanking, which committed the Chinese to free trade of opium. So we forced their hand in this, and yeah, so we had two wars against China 150 years ago, forcing them to allow us to sell heroin to their population. Like that's kind of crazy, is it not?
It is, but I mean, I guess that's what British did with trading. It's also funny that it's from you can get it from poppy seeds or from poppies. That's where you get it from. So yeah,
it's weird, isn't it, the resin? But it's just like how
I mean, I guess they depended on it, so the British depended on it so much for income.
Yeah,
they needed them to also maybe they did the British control the opium before that war, or did China want to take over it? Because maybe this was just a way to get a monopoly over the opium.
Well, I think what it was the like millions of people in China were hooked on opium, and it was having a bit of a negative effect on some societies, which is why the Qing dynasty was so fed up with it happening and said,
well, yeah, I guess Britain was exploiting the addiction.
Yeah. I mean, not that we've ever exploited any countries before in the past. It hasn't happened. But yeah, I mean, it's just weird how we're suddenly, the war on drugs, how in 150 years, it's just completely flips on its head like that.
Yeah. And I guess then, then they were wanting to do these things. And they knew about the harmful effects then. So people that say, oh, we didn't know that things were harmful. It's not true for all drugs. It's true for some, but it's not true for all. But obviously with this, they just wanted to control the trade.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they were trying to push this trade and sell it to British citizens at quite the same level. So it kind of shows that they knew it wasn't, it's not exactly multivitamins you're taking here. It's not that beneficial for people. Did you find out?
Yeah, and now obviously the criminals have the monopoly over drugs like today, and the government doesn't. But if they regulated, if they did somehow manage to obtain like the supply of like modern day drugs, then they'd make a fortune if they actually regulated it. But I don't think that's possible anymore. Yeah,
think of the tax revenue that would generate. Think of all the millions of people that do these substances, and you suddenly slap 20.
They would. They'd make a lot. The only thing they have like some interest in is like medical applications of things like psychedelics. But even with that, they don't. They're very reluctant because a lot of these, not heroin, but like things like psychoclobin, or however you pronounce it in.
Ivan.
Yeah, if you like things like that, it can cure people. So it would eventually the person would stop being a patient. But if you just give them conventional medicine, it only lessens the symptoms. So effectively the person is still a patient. so it's more profitable.
That's
That's the
that's
thing.
what they're looking at, these, experimental preliminary trials with psilocybin, which is, for those people that don't know, psilocybin is a substance, a psychoactive substance, which is found in magic mushrooms and LSD, I believe. And I think they said it has neurogenerative properties, which it basically, the effect it has on your brain is it enables all of these different neuropaths in your brain, so it can help you change habits within your personality, essentially. But they've got, like, recent studies were in the media, weren't they, saying how in the tests they've done, it's been far more impactful than the standard SSRIs and the standard antidepressant meds we're giving people. So that's got a lot of potential.
And it's a shame because people like the Egyptians, they, like, one of the things they used was the blue lotus flower, and that has psychedelic properties. Like, if you go to ancient Egypt, you'll see this like little flat, like one of the hieroglyphs is like a tiny flower, which is the blue lotus flower, and that's used in, like, they used it in like rituals and stuff, and that has really, like, if you take that, I don't know how they did it, but they probably got some sort of oil from it or something. If you take that, that has a lot of good properties, but that's not used anymore.
The Egyptians had less depression than 2022.
Well, the
Kingdom.
well,
Maybe.
yeah.
The ones that weren't slaves, for sure. That's fascinating then, isn't it? So
Slaves didn't actually build the pyramids. This is a misconception.
slaves.
The main pyramids, like on the Giza plateau, that, like, the three big, because there's actually hundreds of pyramids, but the main pyramids weren't built by, there's no evidence that they were built by slaves. This is a misconception. There was some sort of like deal that they had.
Aliens?
I don't think they were, like,
Who were they built with?
they didn't actually build, they weren't they were, I think, slaves didn't, there was slavery in Egypt, but slaves didn't, I think there was a willingness to build them.
Yeah, but
it wasn't slavery as we think of slavery.
I thought it would have had to have been forced labor, because, like, what are you going to do? Lift these massive heat all day for, like, I mean, it's a pretty tough job if you're going to volunteer for that job.
There was, well, according to BBC Science Focus, it says that archaeologists have located the remains of purpose-built villages for the thousands of workers who built these pyramids. And I have seen a documentary on this where it had, like, these buildings where they housed these people. But I mean, well, we don't know how they built them, but there are theories.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Theories that they used sound to levitate the blocks, which might sound silly, but there's, if you use like a certain frequency or resonance, you can make things move in a certain way. And apparently this is a technology that was, like, used in the ancient world, but we've lost, like,
over the centuries.
Or we don't know how to do it. But there's like research being done on this, because how else? Because like the theories, there's a theory that they poured, like, water in front of them and they slid the blocks, but it's not a great theory.
You need a lot of water as well. If you're in Egypt, like, water's going to evaporate quickly. But I know, have you seen the prayer bowls when you have this stick and you go, you roll it around the edges? I have one of these, a Tibetan prayer bowl.
Yeah, I've seen a video of that, and I want to try one of those.
That's what I was going to say. There's this trick I saw on YouTube and I tried it. You put loads of water in it and you go around the outside, and
the water like dances around.
Yeah, the water starts fizzing because it's the frequency of the noise. for the water to fizz. But I mean, you're going to need a massive bowl for that to move like 20-ton sandstone blocks. I don't know if it's sandstone, that just sounded right. But
Well, I think if you like project a certain frequency of sound at things, you can make them vibrate in a certain way, and that can move them. But I don't know how they got them. I don't know how, like, once you've moved it in a stationary position, how they moved it like all that distance, because some of these came from a very long distance. A lot of the stones aren't local.
yeah, but it's like when if you ever sat in front of a really good speaker setup and you're listening
That you can feel it move.
to a song,
Like you can feel the
you don't hear the bass necessarily. You kind of feel the bass. You feel the sound waves coming through the air. But yeah, that would have to be like the loudest sound ever.
I don't know how what I don't know what the source of the sound would have been.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting theory if it is, but I think in terms of the pyramids and all of these structures, I don't really like Stonehenge that much. If you look at Machu Picchu or the ancient pyramids, Machu Picchu, they put a whole city up, at like thousands of feet.
I think the purpose is different.
Stonehenge was they just lent up some big rocks. I give it they're big rocks, but
I think
don't see them as impressive.
But I think like the purpose is different, because Stonehenge is like it's not a clock, but it's like used to track the seasons and stuff. And I don't know if did people live at Stonehenge, or did they just visit it?
I don't know, but I know there's some people living there now at the minute. My friend, did I tell you about Kerr? My friend that has the nature YouTube page. Shout out Kerr. He does this sort of YouTube page, but he does loads of outdoorsy type stuff, and he's got an interview coming out soon. And there's talks and plans to the dual carriageway the motorway that runs past Stonehenge. There's building plans to build a big tunnel under it and to change the road infrastructure next to it. People are rejecting it because it's a World Heritage site and stuff. So there's loads of not really squatters, but
people occupy.
Yeah, and they are living right next to Stonehenge at the minute, protesting this movement of protesting all of these plans because you don't want to damage such a great.
I've never been. It's on my list. I have this like travel ambition to visit all these ancient structures, and I haven't been to any of them though.
Well, you're a young man. You've got time.
I want to go to next year I want to go to the Mayan pyramids
in South America.
Yeah, well, there's actually there's loads. There's the main one, and then there's loads of other structures. But that one, they were obsessed with sound as well. If you clap in front of one of them, it like bounces back and it makes like a cool bird noise. It's really interesting. Yeah, if you clap like in front of the entrance.
That's pretty cool.
It is.
Yeah, that's pretty dope. That's pretty dope to go visit.
These people knew lots of things, but a lot of the knowledge was lost or is hidden. So we don't know. I think there's theories that we were smarter then, like as a collective, we were smarter when we were doing all these things, and then we lost like all this knowledge and ability.
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose what you have to think is in 10,000 years time from now, how much of the structures would still be standing. Certainly none of the roads around where I live, I'll tell you that.
Well, yeah, a lot of them won't be
already. But I was watching, have you watched Blade Runner, the new one with the actor Ryan, no, is it Ryan Gosling? The new Blade Runner, it was a couple years old now. But in that, the premise of that film is something happened whereby like all of the digital technology, something happened to Earth, and everything that was stored, all knowledge that was stored digitally, so on computer drives, hard drives, data storage centers, all got completely wiped. Something happened to Earth. So we had to, so all of the knowledge we had left was just things like classical things stored in libraries and written knowledge. So
some people,
theory, if something like that happened right now, luckily we're
that
not
was,
libraries, but
people thought, basically in the year 2000, well, in the year 1999, they had this like scare called the millennium bug, where they thought in the year 2000 the computers would like crash because it's like changing, and they wouldn't be able to read the number 2000 or something weird like that. But obviously nothing happened, and they sent out this, I have this leaflet thing my mum gave it to, they basically sent something out. It's called, they sent this thing, it's called can you read it?
the millennium bug. Yeah, I can. Facts.
The government sent this thing out, and ask your parents, they probably know about it. But basically they sent this thing out. It said, quite simply, is the name given to what happens when computers and electronic systems can't recognize the year 2000 and read the date as 1900 or another date instead.
Right.
They basically thought that there would be this big thing, that the computers and finances would all crash, but nothing happened.
Luckily, because think how much of our current it's the vast majority. Where does everyone keep their money? In a bank, digitally stored.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good. If I think have like this over-reliance on technology and computers is a very dangerous, but I think inevitable route to go down.
Yeah, for sure. Like one example is I had a guy come around to fix the internet the other day, and he worked for BT, and we're talking about fiber optic cables and how they carry the internet. But they have the way the world internet, how the United States and the Americans are connected to the West by internet is all through deep sea fiber optic cables. These are literally cables that they're not much bigger than like a garden hose or something, but they get laid underneath right along the ocean floor. So like they're 4 miles underneath the ocean, and they run, and there's hundreds of these cables all over the world. And that's what carries the internet traffic that keeps the whole world sort of connected together online with the internet. So sometimes they do get damaged by things like sharks or trawler nets in shallower areas. But yeah, it's kind of fascinating how it works. So yeah, imagine if some Bond like supervillain had some submarines, and if they all got snipped at the same time,
yeah, I think
a whole heap of trouble.
I think like there's like cyber terrorism or whatever. That's going to be the next. Well, it's not really the next problem. It's a problem now. But if you like get a country's cyber defenses down, then you're screwed, because we rely on things so much. Or if you hack it, which is even worse.
Yeah, for sure.
And also now you have all this stuff about deep fakes as well, which is another problem.
Yeah, the deep fake one, the deep fake thing's a weird one. Did you see the Tom Cruise deep fake?
No,
like a year ago. It's some fake video of Tom Cruise, and I can't remember what he's doing. Well, if I find the video, I'll put it up. I'll add it onto the episode for the 3 people that watch on YouTube will be able to see. But it's scary how deep fake. Yeah,
they're very realistic.
Yeah, incredibly realistic. So yes, it's a big threat for sure. It's a big threat. You could use it to like blackmail famous people or something, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, the future with technology does scare me quite a lot, to be honest.
It has, I mean, there's lots of good applications, but you know what people are like. They misuse stuff.
Yeah.
But I think our lifetime won't be that. I think there'll be lots of new things in our lifetime, but I don't think it will be like the height of technology.
No, I think, well, the rate it advances is obviously going to be more advanced in the future, but I think we're going to see some by the time we're doing
I think we'll
episode 2560 and we're both 60 years old and we're doing a podcast episode, I think the technology then will just be insane.
I think we'll have cyborgs, because there's people already saying, like Elon Musk saying, "Oh, we need like implants and stuff in people's the neural implant, which they're working on."
But my theory about that, I think we talked about this before though, was that if he had with Neuralink, he has an implant that can kind of improve productivity by like 10 times. It can make you concentrate, your memory, it improves everything, but it's in prototype yet, and he knows it works in like monkeys or whatever it is. I think he is sort of crazy enough to try putting one in his own brain and then just kind of keeping it on the hush hush and not telling anyone. I'm not sure.
I mean, there might be people with it already now. We just don't know.
Maybe.
I just worry that if you can access these remotely, then the implications of that. Because let's say you're just going about your business and then you just get hacked and you carry out a murder and then you have no recollection.
Oh, damn.
That could happen. But maybe if they were good, if these like tech giants were nice, they'd make it so that you can't hack them, but we know that won't happen.
You feel like you don't. I mean, it would be bad to get your computer to be hacked, but to get your brain hacked,
that would be awful.
I don't
know what
comfortable experience.
I don't know what capabilities it would allow. If it was just you could concentrate longer, but you couldn't literally control the person, then it would be a bit safer. But I don't know how they'll make it. If they'll make it like a full brain, like if they'll completely change your mental capacity and your abilities, then it gets dangerous.
Yeah, I think from a socioeconomic level, it'd get dangerous, because I'm for sure people would use it. And then there's going to be the wealth divide between these people that could afford these chips and those who couldn't would just be even more. It would be like
that's true. The affordability.
It would be the difference between going to a private school and a state school times like 1,000, because suddenly you can work, you can get done 10 times as much as what Jerry can do putting in his 60-hour week. You can do that in like one morning at work, so the potential to increase your sort of economic value would just be insane. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't happen. But yeah. All right, man. Should we finish?
Yeah. See you later.
See you later. How many episodes do you think? I think we got 2 episodes, but I don't know.
Maybe it was 4. It was the first.